Double Cross, and Other Skills I Learned as a Super Spy by Jackson Pierce. Chapter 5. Spies live dangerous lives. I'd always known that. In fact, the danger was part of the reason I'd always wanted to be a field agent. But when I thought about my parents' job, I always saw being a spy mostly as dangling off buildings and karate chopping bad guys and stealing important hard drives. Dangerous, sure, but also exciting and full of adrenaline and heroics. I never doubted for a moment that they'd be back. Mom retelling the confidential parts of the tale and Dad struggling to shake his fake Russian accent. When your parents are the team, you've got a whole house full of medals proving that they can overcome any villain anytime and usually still make it home in time to start dinner. But they weren't coming home. They weren't coming home tonight or tomorrow, and probably not the next day either, because spies live dangerous lives. You understand, Hale, Fishburne said, putting a hand on my arm gently. Fishburne's office looked like him, all hard lines and metal surfaces, and a half a dozen locked file cabinets, one of which Otter was leaning against. You understand that we don't think they've been killed? I finished for him. I thought saying it out loud would make the whole idea of it easier to handle, but it didn't. Exactly. They're more valuable to the League alive, Fishburne said, nodding like my basic comprehension impressed him. I wasn't afraid of much. I'd gone through years of spy training. After all, did I like getting beat up when my classmates and I sparred? No, but it meant I wasn't afraid of getting hit. I wasn't afraid of the dark either. Sure, I couldn't see spring-loaded rope traps in a blackout training hall, but my classmates couldn't either. I wasn't afraid of heights, so as long as I had decent climbing equipment, and I wasn't even afraid of getting caught while running training missions, since being afraid of getting caught is the fastest way to actually get caught. I was afraid of the League. They were a top-secret organization, just like SRS. The difference was they were, well, evil. SRS was secret, sure, but we were on the side of righteousness and morality and other good legal stuff. The League, however, was wholly criminal organization. You've heard of the mob, of heist rings, of the black market? All the League's work. Almost every major crime in the country traced back to them, and half the minor crimes, too. Two high-ranking agents like my parents would be invaluable to a bunch of criminals. They'd mine them for information, get it by any means. My stomach twisted. Fishburne continued, I promise we're doing everything we can to find them. Who are you sending out? I asked. Agent Morgan? No, he's still nursing a broken leg from his last mission. Agent Green would be decent second choice, though she didn't get along with the hits, and that had botched more than one mission. We're working on it, Hale, Fishburne said, smiling. It was a fake smile, the sort we were taught to spot when we were 7. To be honest, I was a little insulted he thought I'd buy it. Who? I asked again. What's the plan? They've got to be at League headquarters. Are we sending a team in, or do we have someone inside? Hale, Otter said, running his tongue over his teeth like my name was stuck between them. He gave Fishburne a look that said, let me handle this. Hale, Otter started again. The mission your parents were on is gold level classified. I don't even know what it is. If we send in a team right now, we risk the mission. I knew what it was. Project Ground Cover, the mission that had my parents so worried. I guess they'd been right to have been concerned. But how was some stupid mission, even a gold-level classified one, more important than my parents? My hands were curled into fists so tight, my knuckles hurt. This wasn't fair. This wasn't right. We're doing everything we can, Hale, Fishburne said, stepping in. Right now, you need to trust us. I will, as soon as you tell me what you're doing to save them. It was a bold thing to say, and I knew it. I stood up and walked out. Otter called my name, but I slammed the door anyway. I silently dared him to come after me. He didn't. Ms. Elma was at our apartment when Kennedy and I got back. She wandered around, too tall and lanky for the rooms, running her fingers across surfaces as if the whole place perplexed her. I knew I should actually be relieved to see her, because it meant that SRS wasn't certain that our parents were never coming back. Kids whose parents were gone for good, or who were away on long-term missions, lived in the dorm rooms on the upper floor. I never really thought of those kids as very different from me. We were all part of the SRS family, right? But now I realize just how different we were, and how badly I didn't want to be one of them. I didn't want to live in a dorm room and not eat breakfast with my parents and not complain to my dad when Otter was being a jerk and never go to Mom when I needed to talk about Walter. I had the cafeteria send up dinner, Ms. Elma said in a voice I think was supposed to be warm, but was still so cold it froze my thoughts. She motioned towards the kitchen table, where she'd placed the styrofoam takeout boxes at 3 of the 4 seats. She flicked the overhead lights on, which we never used because it made a buzzing sound Mom hated, and poured us glasses of water with too much ice. Kennedy, who had barely let go of my hand since we'd met outside Fishburne's office, looked at me, then exhaled and pulled me over to the table. She took her normal seat silently, and I took mine. Ms. Elma started to lower herself into a third chair. "That's Dad's seat," Kennedy said crossly. Ms. Elma raised her eyebrows. "Is there somewhere else I should sit, then?" I had to give her some credit. She seemed to be trying. But trying to step in for our parents was sort of like me trying to do a pull-up. It just wasn't going to happen. Kennedy didn't respond, but kept her eyes hard on Ms. Elma. Even her freckles seemed to be glaring. "Right," Miss Elma said tersely. "What if I go watch television while I eat then? Give you two a little sibling time." She rose, breathed slowly, and settled in the other room. I heard the sound of her opening and rifling around in her takeout box. Kennedy and I stared at our styrofoam boxes like they might contain explosives. "Wait, is there no television here?" Ms. Elma called from the other room. "No," I answered. "We're not allowed." "Not even a little one? What do you do at night?" "We play board games. Mom and Dad don't like television," Kennedy snapped. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. I rose, nearly knocking my chair back, and went around the table. Kennedy hugged me so hard her fingers almost touched, and I thought she might break my ribs. Freeing myself, I knelt down. I shook my head at her. "Don't cry," I said, as Kennedy's face twisted up. She squeezed her eyes shut as hard as she could and fell forward, dropping her head to my shoulder. Kennedy sniffled. "Everyone's saying Fishburne is just giving up on them." "That's ridiculous," I said. "He just doesn't want to risk the mission." "No one's doing anything," she protested, sitting back. Her eyes were wide, her skin pale under the overhead light. I exhaled. "How about we go to bed? It's later than it feels." "It's barely 7, she said, wiping her nose with her hand. Still, we left our takeout containers untouched and went to brush our teeth. I helped Kennedy into her bed and pulled up the covers, then found Tinsel, the stuffed hedgehog she liked to pretend she didn't need anymore, but definitely did at times like this. "Are you going to tell me a story?" she asked, her voice meek. Dad used to tell us bedtime stories about when he was a new agent. The time he mixed up German for Icelandic, or when he used 3 sticks of chewing gum to hotwire a car. I knew Dad didn't tell her stories every night anymore, but I sat down on the edge of her bed anyway. "I don't have any good stories," I said. "I'm not an agent." "You could tell me about winning the race yesterday," she suggested, picking at Tinsel's quills. I mean, your version. The true version, you mean? I said, and launched into the story. I started quietly with just the details, but as I went on, things got bigger and louder until I was crashing across the room in a recreation of the way I slid into the cafeteria ahead of Walter. Kennedy was giggling, her thin lips pulled into a broad smile. When I left the room, she was still awake, staring at the ceiling, and I knew she would cry again before she fell asleep. So would I. I ran into Miss Elma in the hallway, literally ran into her, hard enough that she bounced back a few steps. "You didn't eat your dinner," she said politely. "You're supposed to eat it." "We aren't hungry," I answered, wondering if Miss Elma was really the person to be put in charge of me and Kennedy. Surely she'd do better with something less human and more, say, houseplant? "Oh, I'll save them. You'll probably be hungry later." "I finished alterations on your uniform." She held out a limp pile of black spandex and gave me an almost warm look, as if the fast turnaround was something to be appreciated and admired. She cleared her throat. "I know, Jordan Hale, that you want someone to be in charge and go in and save them. We all wish it were that easy. But SRS agents can't just sneak into League headquarters. It's risky for everyone, including your parents and the mission. You've got to think of the mission." "Right." Ms. Elma nodded, twisting her lips in a way that made her face look like it contained too many bones. Finally, she patted me on the shoulder and retreated back to the living room. I went to my bedroom and shut the door. I wanted to lock it, but I was worried Kennedy might want to come in sometime during the night. I changed into pajamas and climbed into bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars that covered my ceiling. The truth was, everything Miss Elma and Dr. Fishburne had said made sense. With my parents gone, SRS couldn't just throw more agents into the world and hope for the best. Agents were precious resources, the products of years of training and preparation. And a mission, even a mission I didn't really know anything about, was always the priority. But I wasn't an agent. I then began to undeniably, unabashedly scheme.